Hey, and welcome back to the Musicians Talk Show, episode 19. We have a great show for you guys today. But first, today's podcast is brought to you by Bandsoogle. All right, guys, check this out. Bandsoogle is amazing. It makes it super easy to build a stunning website for your music in minutes. And seriously, it's super easy. No offense to the drummers, but even your drummer could do it. And, they have tons of mobile-friendly themes. You can customize your design and content in just a few clicks with an easy visual editor. You don't need to know how to code or anything like that. Tons of features built directly into the platform, like tools to sell your music and merch, commission-free. One of the best things, they don't take a percentage of your sales at all, right on your website. Mailing list tools to grow your fan lists and newsletters, anything like that. Gotta have a mailing list. We talk about that a lot in this episode. Integrations to pull in content from all your online services, like any of your social media, Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, any of that stuff. And live support from their musician-friendly team 7 days a week. I mean, everyone that works there is a musician or married to a musician, so you know you're in good hands. Here's the best part. Bandsoogle plans start at just $8.29 a month and includes your own free custom domain name. So that's included in that price. So go to bandzoogle.com to try it free for 30 days and make sure to use the promo code TMTS. We got you guys 15% off your first year. So go check out Bandsoogle, websites built for musicians by musicians. I can't recommend it enough, you guys. Okay, and speaking of Bandsoogle, we have today none other than Dave Cool. He's head of artist relations at Bandsoogle. And man, we have just such a great show, Matt. What can they expect from Dave?
Yeah, Dave Cool has got lots of great info on being a band in the modern day, working in social media and stuff like that. It's a huge part of being in a band.
Absolutely.
If you're not online and you're not spreading your word through social media and any other ways, we talk about YouTube, we talk about all the different ways and how Bandsoogle can help with all that stuff.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you're in a band, if you're an artist, if you're trying to make a living with music, this episode is a must listen. So let's not talk about it anymore. Let's get right to it. Here we go. First thing I wanted to ask you was, how did you get started in music in general?
Honestly, my dad, so I grew up in a very musical family. There's been a Saturday night blues jam at my parents' place since before I was born. So going back, at least 38 years. And when I was 5 years old, my dad needed a new drummer for his cover band and just basically trained me like a monkey to play drums and keep a beat. And, from there, played with his band for many years until it wasn't cool to be in your dad's band. And then, played drums in various rock and punk rock and hardcore punk bands up here in Montreal for many years, did some touring, signed some small label deals, things like that. So it all kind of stemmed from just the necessity of my dad needing a drummer for his band, and then kind of went from there.
That's awesome. So then what led you to get involved with Bandsoogle and kind of shift into that side of things?
I started my own label in my early 20s, and I released a documentary film called What is Indie, which is a little snapshot of the music industry now in 2004 it would be. And it was originally supposed to be a compilation record, but with a little, you guys are probably not old enough, but there used to be a day when like CD-ROMs had like multimedia extras. And so I was trying to make a little 5-minute video to go with this compilation, and it ended up turning into a documentary film. And that kind of was my calling card for a little bit in the industry. And I met a lot of people like the founder of Sonic Bids and the founder of CD Baby, who were both in the film. And Bandsoogle heard about me through that. And I had actually been using Bandsoogle since they started. So going back, almost 14 years, I have a couple of accounts that are from 2004 on Bandsoogle. One of them was for that film. So I've always known Bandsoogle and been a user long before I ever worked for them. And just over the years, knew about them and they knew about me. And then at one point they were looking for someone to oversee their blog and do some content writing. And things kind of worked out well. So that was 7 years ago. That I officially started working for them, but have been a long-time Bandsoogle user long before then.
That's awesome. No better person to get working for you than that.
Yeah, exactly.
So could you tell us a little bit about Bandsoogle's history just overall as a company?
Yeah, so It's founded by musician Chris Vincent, who played up here in Montreal. He played bass in sort of the big rock band in the Montreal music scene. It was a band that we all looked up to. He's a few years older than me, and so my band coming up, looked up to his band, and they were signed to the big major label in Canada. And the band broke up, and he was a web designer and had designed the band's website, and so the label hired him to design all the websites for all the bands on the label. So we're talking dozens and dozens of websites. And after the initial designs were done, all the bands and managers were asking him to update photos and, show dates and things like that. And he got so overwhelmed, he built a control panel for all of the bands to be able to log in and just do it themselves because he didn't have time.
Smart.
And Bandsoogle was born because he figured, well, this might be useful to other musicians. So it was kind of a happy accident, and it really all started there. And he worked out of that label office for the first little while, but as soon as he had to hire a developer, he couldn't find one in Montreal, and he had to hire someone from outside the city, and realized, well, why am I coming into an office when the only employee isn't coming into the office? So Bandsoogle's actually been a remote company since almost the very beginning.
That's awesome. So what would you say, if you had to summarize it, what is Bandsoogle's mission?
It's really to make the lives of musicians easier online. I mean, it's not the official company slogan, but I always tell people that Bandsoogle's so easy your drummer could do it. And it's really so that, website is obviously an important piece of your overall marketing strategy. And so just to make it easy for musicians to design a professional, beautiful website where they can sell their music, run their mailing list, have everything in one place, really an all-in-one platform that doesn't take a lot of time, that's not hard to figure out, so that, you can spend more time rehearsing and playing shows. And, so it's really, that's been the mission from day one, is just to make the easiest possible platform and the most robust one, so that it's, it's serving the needs of musicians, but also making it a lot easier for them to accomplish what they need to online.
Very cool.
Okay. So you mentioned email list. Why is it important for artists and bands nowadays to keep an email list?
Yeah, it sounds a little old school, to be honest, but it's amazing that even today, and the same could be said with websites, really. I mean, in the age of social media, websites and email are still two of the most important pieces of your overall marketing strategy. And the reason for that is that you own those properties. You own your domain name. So when you create a website on Bandsoogle, it's not a profile page on, bandsoogle.com/musicians talk show. It's, themusicianstalkshow.com. And you guys own that. And any band that uses Bandsoogle, they own their domain name. And so they can take that with them if they ever leave the service for whatever reason. And the same thing goes for your mailing list. So as you collect emails and you're growing your database of fans, you can take that database with you. And so let's say you're using MailChimp and you want to use Bandsoogle's built-in mailing list tool, then you just download your database of emails from MailChimp, upload it to our mailing list tool, and start using it there. And you can always take that with you, which is incredibly powerful because, you can't do that with social media. Like back, years ago when MySpace was like the social media platform, and a lot of musicians built up huge followings on MySpace, it just crumbled seemingly overnight, and there was no, copy my MySpace friends to Facebook. You had to start over again.
Right.
So with your email list, you own that, and you can, keep going back to your fans for as long as you're active as a musician. And so that's the primary reason. And the secondary reason is if you're looking to make money as a musician, which many are, and if you're not, that's cool too. I mean, it's a great hobby, but if you're looking to make money and try to make a career of it, still to this day, the best way to monetize any customer, whether it's fans of your music or Amazon and Apple with what they sell, they send dedicated email blasts when they really want to sell something,
right?
Because it's still the best way to sell. Because you think about social media, people are on Facebook to look at stupid memes and funny videos. They're not there to shop.
Right.
they're there to socialize and be with their friends. So if you send a dedicated email blast to your fans who've given you their email address, they want to hear from you, and you have a new album coming out, and you send an email saying, hey, click here to buy or click here to stream, you're going to get way better results from that than shouting on Twitter all day long.
Right, exactly. So kind of keeping control of your own group of people.
100%, yeah.
So I think we can kind of extrapolate that into a bigger topic, which is being indie versus being signed nowadays. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, made a whole movie about that. It's changed a lot since, when I made What Is Indie, it was 2004, 2005. Mm-hmm. And that's when, technology was really allowing musicians to be able to record for cheap and be able to release their music for relatively cheap using services like CD Baby and TuneCore. And then, of course, social media, allowing musicians to basically promote to a worldwide audience. And that affected how people viewed getting signed versus not getting signed. And I'll admit back then, I was very much, indie, rah, don't sign a label deal, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. As I've gotten older and seen more and more, my friends as musicians come across opportunities with labels, I'd say every situation is different, and I wouldn't sign just any label deal, but if it's a label that really understands what you're doing as a band and has the right connections to be able to take your band to the next level, then that's worth something, And I wouldn't shy away. I don't think labels are inherently evil, especially indie labels. There's a lot of good people working in the music industry who are really good at some of the things that musicians or you may not be good at, like publicity and marketing and booking and all that, sort of thing. So right. I think if a label brings value to you in areas that you're not strong at yourself, then if the deal makes sense and they're not, taking everything in your firstborn child, then I think it's totally legit to try to get to that next level and let the label try to, open a lot of doors for you. So I would say that I'm not pro-label or anti-label. I think every single situation is different. I think it's amazing that musicians can survive and even thrive in some cases without the need of a label anymore because of technology and all the tools that are available out there. But I wouldn't necessarily shut the door on a label if they came knocking.
Right. Okay. So, how would you suggest an indie band make that step and work on trying to land a label deal? I'm sure you see hundreds, if not thousands of bands cross your desk, I'm sure every day, every month, whatever it is. But I think your insight on that will be very helpful.
It's one of those things. I was a booking agent for many years up here in Montreal as well. And I used to, when I was in bands, I was frustrated with booking agents because they wouldn't answer my calls and they wouldn't, book my band. And then you realize that, they're just super busy people and everyone is trying to get something from them.
Right.
And so when I was on the other side, I was like, oh yeah, like that's why, like they're just inundated with requests and people trying to get them to work with them, and you can't work with everyone. So the same thing applies to labels, and it sucks to hear this, but I've learned that it is so true that it's very rare, almost never happens that an artist will get signed from an unsolicited submission.
Right.
It usually happens and what I always tell bands starting out is just work on your live show, work on your music, your songwriting, just focus on that and build a buzz around your band. And if you're doing a good job at that and people are talking about you and you're bringing fans out to shows and you're packing venues, trust me, people in the industry are going to hear about it. That's their job. They want to know who are the new and upcoming bands that are generating a buzz, that are selling tickets, that are selling music or streaming a lot of music. They're looking for that. So if you do that, if you work on that, they'll come to you, and then you're in a better position anyways because they're coming to you. So that
right.
so that the power
You have more
dynamic
power.
shifts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
a little bit in that case.
Right. So there's a lot to be said for building your own audience and, having something to show to a record label. And that's what people maybe miss the step, You gotta already have
100%.
something impressive.
Exactly. And getting back to the email database thing, I mean, if a label, if you're building a buzz and you're selling out venues and things like that, and a label comes to you and you can be like, look, we have a database of 5,000, 10,000 fans. What are you going to do for us that's going to take that to the next level?
Right.
Kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like
Power
the
changes.
more data you have through your website stats, your social media stats, your streaming stats, and your email list, I mean, that's leverage in any kind of negotiation for it. Whether it's a booking agent or a record label or a manager, they have to bring something to the table to do better and take you to the next level than you're already been able to achieve on your own.
Right. And I mean, I think it was a little before my time, but we used to have artist development deals, right? Where they would find some sort of relatively unknown person and kind of pour all this money into him and make him a superstar, right? I think that's what people are hoping for.
Right.
And that's not really how it works anymore.
No, I would say maybe with the exception of like pop stars.
Sure.
I think it probably still happens more often in that genre, but otherwise, no, those days are long over. I mean, there's not enough money,
Right.
Especially with indie labels, to invest in developing artists. Now, what they do is what I mentioned is they kind of sit back and they keep tabs on artists and bands that are generating a buzz. And then if they see the potential, then they can take that and work with it, but they're not going to pour, 6 figures into developing you from, a brand new artist that hasn't played any live shows,
right.
All the way.
And as tough as that may be to hear as an artist who doesn't have that following yet, I think that's probably a better way of doing business overall.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The classic, sitting back and waiting for that magical deal that's going to change your career. Like you start to realize that, even those deals don't change your career overnight. It's everything that happens in your career is just a building block, a stepping stone, a step forward.
Right.
And you're best off just focusing on building up your own fan base, your own buzz, working on your music, working on your live show, making sure that everything you're doing is totally kick ass and that your fans are talking about you online and, you're generating that buzz. And then, the other stuff falls into place after that.
Yeah.
Right. And then, like you said, the power dynamic is a little more even, which is always good. So you don't get, not as easy to take advantage of and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were talking about email lists. You mentioned, this hypothetical artist having 5,000 to 10,000 fans. What would you suggest for bands who have 0 fans? How do they grow that list to that 5,000 to that 10,000 and beyond?
Well, if you're playing live, then you definitely need to have this kind of basic stuff, but you should have a mailing list sign up at your show. That could be, a physical piece of paper, or it could be on your iPad or iPhone where you have your sign up form there. Obviously on your website, it should be the primary sort of call to action, which, when someone lands on your site, a call to action is just the one action you want them to take while they're there on your site. Because everyone has ADD and they're, clicking around. So when they land on your site, what do you actually want them to do? And we always suggest that artists have the mailing list sign up front and center. And that's step one. Step two is to offer some incentive for a fan to give up their email address because, people are afraid of spam and getting too many emails, that kind of thing. So what value is in it for them to give up their email address? And so, the standard used to be giving away, a free song, free track, that kind of thing. And you can automate that in Bandsoogle. You can even give away a full album automated through our mailing list tool. But I really, really believe that you have to do more than that now. And it has to be something exclusive. So something that is not available anywhere else. So that could be an unreleased song. It could be a live EP. It could be, exclusive video content. But exclusivity is key because they need to feel that there's something of value they're getting in return rather than, sign up to get my latest news kind of thing. Like
right.
Some fans might do that, granted, but you want to give yourself the best chance to collect those emails from people that are landing on your website, that are at your shows, that kind of thing. So I would say that anything you can do to make it interesting, exclusive, and unique for people to sign up to your mailing list is the best way to go about it.
Okay, great. So shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about money. I want to talk about making money as a musician nowadays, because a lot of people believe it's gotten harder. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. I don't know. But I'd love to get your views on how you make money as a modern musician, in 2018.
Yeah, so there's actually, for anyone listening to this, if you go to the Bandsoogle blog, bandsoogle.com/blog, on the sidebar, there's a free ebook called 23 Ways Musicians Can Make Money. And it stemmed from a blog post I wrote years ago, which was 18 Ways Musicians Can Make Money. And it turned out to be, and still to this day, the number one most read blog post ever in the history of the company. And it turns out musicians are interested in hearing about how they can make money.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? So, I would say I don't think it's easier or harder now than it was before. You'll hear stories of the glory days back in the day when, tons of money in touring and CD sales and that kind of thing. I think for some, maybe, but I think for unsigned artists, independent artists, it's arguably easier now. And even though some of those revenue streams are less, there are now more revenue streams available. So right. It's super important to diversify your revenue streams. You can't just play live and expect to sell CDs and then sit back and make a career. You have to make sure you're collecting every possible royalty that is owed to you, which is something not a lot of bands do. You can sell merch. You can have a Patreon. I notice you guys are on Patreon. Like, you can be on Patreon and release exclusive content to your Patreon followers. Let me just see here. There's so many ways that are kind of new compared to what used to be. And even like streaming revenue is not impressive, but I always include it because it is still a little bit of money. And right. What's interesting about streaming is that, and this has happened to a very good friend of mine who had a song of his, unsigned independent artist, had a song of his added to a really popular playlist on Spotify, and his career has blown up. Like, talk about managers, labels, beating down your door. Like, it happened because of streaming. Like, he didn't make a ton of money off of it, but it opened a lot of doors.
Sure.
For his career. That's a whole other conversation, obviously. But, crowdfunding is something that, wasn't around back, in the 80s and 90s. YouTube, sponsorships, that kind of thing. So it's so important to be able to look at all of these revenue streams and plan out how you as a musician, a band, can touch all of these revenue streams. And if you add them all up, hopefully over time, it results in a living wage, which is really the goal. I mean, being rich and famous is, if those are your goals, and I wish you luck. And it does happen to, a few lucky lottery winners. But I think if you're making a living wage off of your music, then that is a huge accomplishment and should be something you're super proud of. So looking at all these different revenue streams is key, because you're going to need all of them to sort of, scrape up all that revenue on a monthly basis to be interesting enough to perhaps quit your job and do it full time.
Yeah. And if you're already started by making money, if you're even just sustainable in the beginning, that can get you to a place where you can be creative and you can do your thing and you can continue working and getting better. And who knows where you could end up after that. So just getting sustainable at first. Just,
yes.
Any way you can make money.
Yeah, exactly. And there's one thing, it amazes me whenever I hear the statistics. So for any bands listening to this, if you have music playing on services like SiriusXM Radio, Pandora, or other webcasters, those digital royalties are different than what you would collect from a performance rights organization. That's sort of the live performance royalties, publishing royalties, that kind of thing. And so Sound Exchange is the only organization collecting those royalties, and it's
Right.
free to sign up. And they have tens and tens of millions of dollars sitting in their bank account unclaimed because the artists haven't signed up for Sound Exchange to claim the money owed to them.
Wow.
Like, it is one of the biggest mysteries to me how every, but it's just one of those things. It's a new revenue stream. Like, it's because of some law that was passed, and they're still trying to get the word out that, hey, we have all of these royalties available waiting to be claimed. Like, please sign up for free to take your money.
Yeah.
So
it's like not signing up for the 401k match. It's like, what are you doing? It's free money.
Exactly.
So let's shift gears a little deeper into specifically modern music marketing. What kind of strategies would you suggest bands, artists, whoever use to get themselves out there, other than the ones we've already talked about?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the big focus, as it should be, is on social media. I mean, that's where most of your fans are going to be. And so I really view it as part of a musician's job in the modern music industry to engage with their fans every single day. Yeah. Whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, you need to be touching base with your fans and posting content and engaging content, and not just self-promotional stuff. Just, you find like the artists that do a good job at social media connecting with their fans are ones that aren't always promoting themselves, but they're just being who they are, and their fans connect with them on a more human level. And it becomes more of a conversation, and the fans feel like they're going along the journey with that artist. So using the tools is one thing, and that's like step one, but it's more about how you approach it and how you engage with your fans. Like, it amazes me that, like, if a fan asks a question or makes a comment, you always have to respond. Like, obviously you get to a level at some point where that's not possible, but when you're starting out, like, you have to make your fans feel like if they've taken time and effort to ask you a question or engage with some of your content, to at least thank them, acknowledge them in some way, like that might make their day. Yeah. And you might make a super fan out of them. They tell their friends and brag about it, and people start talking about you. So it's really just understanding the need to engage with your fan base on a daily basis. And I met a band down in Florida while giving a workshop at Full Sail University, and every single one of the band members took turns. Like, they each had a day of the week where they were on all the social media platforms.
Smart.
And I started following them on Twitter after meeting them, and it's incredible. It was incredible to see, like, the level of commitment to just daily engagement with their fans. I was like, oh yeah, this is a perfect example of what, most bands should be doing.
Right. And back to what you were saying about not just, promoting yourself every time you're posting, you know what I mean? Maybe like, interesting articles that have something, to do with, stuff, or, memes, anything just lighthearted, you just keep posting something that engages with people, and if it's, as long as it's on your site, they're thinking of you, and they're, talking to you, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And whatever your interests and hobbies are, like, you'd be amazed what fans will connect with. And, I know an artist up here in Montreal who, he's a folk blues singer-songwriter, but he is super passionate about baseball and posts about baseball. And a local radio station, like the big sports radio station in Montreal, found out about this, and he started to be a regular guest.
Very cool.
And of course, he'd talk about his music. They bring him on, introduce him as a musician. If he had a show coming up, it gets it promoted. So it's just one of those things. It's like, you never know. Like, just be who you are.
Right. Keep it personal.
And now he's in front of all those fans who would not have maybe heard about him otherwise.
Exactly.
Yeah, lots of ways to branch out. How do you feel about paying for ad space on social media and stuff like that? That seems like it's pretty popular nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook's the big one. I definitely wouldn't spend much time buying Twitter ads.
Right.
You'll get buried
and Instagram
quick.
is starting to become, more. Yeah, exactly. Instagram is starting to become more popular as well. We have a couple of blog posts on Bandsoogle, like how to create a Facebook ads campaign for your music, and same thing with Instagram. But Facebook ads, I think, can be effective in some cases.
Mhm.
And there's a few different. So when we're talking about ads, like there's boosted posts, there's straight up ads, and then there's like buying likes, which is something that no musician should ever do.
No, no.
Um, and it still happens every single day. I come
Sure.
across social media platforms where you can tell either their Twitter numbers are bumped up or their Facebook numbers are bumped up. And the problem with that is, I understand the thinking behind it is that you want to sort of game the system and have like fans in industry, especially industry, think that you're more popular than you actually are. But the problem is, especially on Facebook, is if you want to boost a post, like let's say you're releasing a new album or launching a crowdfunding campaign, and you want to boost the post so more of your followers see it, well, now you're paying for the privilege to show that content to fake likes.
Yeah.
So it really backfires in a bad way long term. So in terms of advertising, so boosted posts are handy for those big announcements, new album, touring, crowdfunding campaign, launching a Patreon page, that kind of thing. My buddy who I was talking about before, who got a lot of streams on Spotify, he would boost posts, when he reached certain milestones, like 1 million streams, 2 million streams, when he signed a, big deal in Nashville with a label there, that kind of thing. So, important career highlights, like
Right.
if you want to make sure a lot of your fans see it, then cool. Otherwise, you want to really focus on engaging content and sort of reach as many of your fans as possible. In terms of straight up ads, I would say that in my experience, it's especially useful for live events, so for shows. So especially if you're touring, because you can really target, by city, people that like your page, friends of people that like your page, that kind of thing. Those ads have actually honestly worked on me. Like an artist I really like came through Montreal and I didn't know, and a Facebook ad popped up and I bought a ticket because
Right.
I was like, oh, hey, he's in town, I should go. So I think with anything to do with ads, you really just have to keep in mind you need a clear goal. Like what is the goal of the ad? Is it to sell tickets? Is it to increase mailing list signups? Is it to increase streams, sell albums, that kind of thing? And then start small. You can A/B test different campaigns, different imagery, different text, and then go with the ones that are working and put more of your budget into those. But
Right.
with Facebook especially, it is so easy to spend a lot of money because you get excited because you see the stats coming in and they show you how many like impressions and how many people saw the ad and that kind of thing. But you have to really keep in mind what your goal is and if that ad is being effective in reaching your goal.
Yep.
So with all of these different marketing tools and streams of income and all this stuff, particularly Sound Exchange you mentioned earlier, how does one stay organized? How does one keep track of all this different stuff?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's definitely being an indie band is there's a lot of organizational stuff you got to keep in mind. And
Yeah, and musicians are not known to be organized.
Indeed. Over the years, I've seen so many musician tools come and go, and there's been a handful, probably even half a dozen, that have been, these type of management tools to stay organized. But none of them have been successful because there's so many free tools out there that kind of do the same job, like Dropbox or Google Drive and Google Docs, that kind of thing. So I don't think there's any best way to do it, but I'd say that you definitely should have one place where if you're in a band, all your band members can access, your login information for all the different platforms you're on, all the different accounts you have, anything that using any kind of system where you can set reminders. So, just a basic thing like using Google Docs, Google Drive with Google Calendar and connecting those two and just setting reminders and making sure you're staying on top of deadlines for, festival applications and reporting and anything that needs to be done. So there's no, end all be all tool out there. I think it's really more just about the tools that sort of everyone uses to stay organized, and just finding the ones that you like, using the best.
Yeah, and those ones that you were just mentioning are all on mobile devices, so you can literally do everything on the go. So if anybody is having trouble organizing, download those apps, get yourself some organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's worth mentioning, they don't really cost anything. They're freemium, right? They're free, but with paid options if you need them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whereas these tools that have come out over the years, they charge a monthly subscription, and it's, they had all of these companies, targeting musicians, just had a hard time convincing them that, it's worth 10, 15, 20 bucks a month, 30 bucks a month to just stay organized, when you can use, spreadsheets and Google Docs and all that stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. So with a band, let's say they have, 3, 4, 5, 6 even social media accounts, why is it important for them to also have a website?
We really see your artist website as your hub online. So social media is super important, and that's where you're going to go have conversations with your fans, engage with your fans, find new fans. But at the end of the day, you want to drive those fans back to your website. And the reason for that is your website is still the best place where you can collect and own your data, so you can see where those fans are, where they're coming from, what they searched for when they found your site, what link brought them there, getting them signed up to your mailing list, having that clear call to action on your website, because you control that real estate online. And hopefully you don't flood it with links and ads, taking people everywhere else, because social media is a bit messy. And, as soon as you send someone, one of the classic things I see is on an artist's website, their videos tab links directly to their YouTube page, or a YouTube video. And once you send someone away to YouTube, you've probably lost them, because they're going to be watching some, crazy cat video.
Absolutely.
Immediately after. So your website is really where your fans can focus on you. You can brand it. It can look how you want. That's where you can set your goals of, like, do I want to collect email addresses? Do I want to sell tickets for my upcoming tour? Do I want to, let people know about my crowdfunding campaign? That kind of thing. So it's really focused on you. It's your place online that you own. It's your little slice of the internet. So it's important. And the other side of it is, that's sort of the fan perspective. But the other side of it is, whether bands like it or not, industry bookers, managers, labels expect you to have a website. Like, that's where they're going to go to find out everything about your career in one place.
Yeah.
Because Twitter has like a 160 character bio. Facebook, you can have pages and tabs within the page, but it's kind of messy. Your website is the cleanest place where you can have an EPK page, electronic press kit page, that has, career highlights, your official bio, right, things like that, all in one place. So it just makes the lives of bookers easier, and any industry that's scouting you, your website can make a huge difference. On the flip side, it can also hurt you if you have a really terrible looking website with, poorly shot photos. If it's a complete mess, then it can actually, hurt your career. So if if you have a website, you do need to pay attention to how it looks and how it comes across.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talking before about the YouTube and stuff like that, like, it seems like that's become a really useful tool for bands. Even if you don't have like the money to put on a full music video or anything like that, you can put together a lyric video pretty easily. And you could pretty much have every song on YouTube if you want. Actually, just look at Metallica. Just released their whole record on YouTube before they released the actual album itself. So they had a
nice.
video for every song.
I hadn't heard about that. Yeah, it makes sense. And whenever YouTube comes up, I always tell musicians that whether they like it or not, YouTube's still one of the first places people go to find a song.
Yeah.
Like, everyone uses YouTube. My dad goes to YouTube to listen to music.
Especially people who aren't as adept with the internet. It's so easy for everybody to go to YouTube and search whatever they want to find. Everything's there.
Exactly. And so chances are, if you're just starting out as a band, it's less of a concern. But a friend of mine here in Montreal, she one of her songs was used as in the trailer for a pretty popular indie film. and someone uploaded her song to their channel because they were, and
Sure.
I don't think there's anything malicious, or most of the time it's not malicious, but that person uploaded the song because they loved it and they wanted to share it on YouTube. Well, it got hundreds of thousands of views,
Right.
and it wasn't on the artist's channel.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating because you can't see any of the data from that. You can't monetize it if they weren't running ads.
Yep.
And what do? Do you ask them to tear it down? Well, that
Then
might
you
be
look
one
like
of
a
your
bad guy.
fans. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I always tell artists, look, if you're on YouTube, well, you should be on YouTube. Even if it's just a lyric video or just an album cover, like all of your music should be up there because someone's probably going to upload it to their channel. And you want to make sure that people find your official channel with all your music. You can monetize through advertising, although YouTube has just made that a lot more difficult for bands starting out. That being said, and you can use tools like TuneCore, CBaby, Audiam, who will scour YouTube for any instances of your music, getting back to revenue streams,
Right.
of any instances of your music being used on YouTube, and flag those videos. If they're already advertising on the video, then YouTube owes you a royalty from that, and they collect that on your behalf. And if they're not advertising, they, on your behalf, will force ads onto the video, or the person has to take down the video. And then you can monetize that way. So there are ways to monetize on YouTube, but just in the last couple of months, YouTube set new rules for their advertising network and partners. And I think I forget the exact statistics, but it's a lot harder now to be able to.
I think it's you need at least 1,000 subscribers, I want to say. Something like that.
That sounds right. 1,000 subscribers, and also
that's before you're even eligible.
Before you're even eligible, but there has to be a certain amount of hours of view time in the last year, and that is the number that is ridiculous.
I think it was like 30 or 40 hours. I think something like that.
Something like that, but
which is good news for someone like us, a podcast where that's only 40 episodes. Like that's not too hard to hit, but for songs that are 3 to 5 minutes, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is, and it becomes they're spinning it how they want to, but it makes it a lot harder for artists to be able to monetize their YouTube channel, which is that's where Patreon came out of, is a YouTuber that was frustrated with the advertising revenue. And so launched, Patreon, and so that you can have more direct interactions and connection with your fans who pay you a monthly recurring small fee rather than you're getting pennies on YouTube. People, I don't know, YouTube has better PR or Spotify has just terrible PR, but everyone focuses on Spotify payments. YouTube payments are way worse than Spotify. Yeah. For streams. They're not even comparable. So, it's one of those things that you hope it gets better, but the reality is that, getting back to the original point, is that most people are on there listening to music, so you should have your own channel and upload your songs there.
Kind of along this topic, what are your views or thoughts on piracy as it is in 2018?
Well, I think it's much less of a concern. I still remember the first time I used Napster, and it was it was just starting out, and it was such a huge thing. And speaking of Metallica, they were obviously a big part of that whole story, suing Napster. But I still remember downloading my first song off Napster and just being amazed.
Whoa, I didn't pay anything.
Yeah, exactly. And feeling guilty and that whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, and the music industry made a monumental mistake that they're now just finally catching up to, and you're seeing with the streaming revenue and streaming subscriptions, this is just how fans want to consume music now. There is always going to be people that prefer vinyl, CD, downloads, but the reality is the trend of music fans is it's trending towards streaming platforms, and streaming platforms have made it so easy to find music legally. And Spotify, there's a free version of it. You get an ad every so often, but they've made it so painless to do it legally that I think piracy is much less of a concern, and it's something that new artists. I still get questions from artists starting out, like, should I, make sure to copyright my music? Should I, only have short previews on my website and make people buy to hear the full song? And I'm like, you know what? If people are pirating your music, you're probably doing something right. And people want to hear your music. So I would focus your energy on something else and, finding ways to, monetize in other ways, by offering merch and, maybe a crowdfunding campaign and things like that. So it's not something that is as hot a topic as it was, 10 years ago.
Right. I've noticed the same.
Because of streaming platforms that have just made it, it's just, and it's such a, I don't even, to be honest, I wouldn't even know how to pirate at this point.
Yeah.
music. Like I don't know what I would need to download. I don't know what service to use. Whereas, 10, 15 years ago, everyone knew it was Napster, and then there was a few others that followed. But, dealing with the, possible spam and viruses that infect your computer after using those services, like it, just use Spotify for free if you really don't want to pay.
Right. Last couple questions here. How would you suggest bands stay creative when marketing so they don't just look like everyone else out there?
That's a great question. I think it's really important to step back and really take a look at I hate talking in terms of branding and brands, but it is true that you really need to know what your identity and what your brand is. Right. Is it kind of funny and lighthearted? Is it more dark and serious? And really bring out whatever is unique about you, about your music, about your band. Bring that out on social media and everything that you do. And that's going to be the best way to stand out. Rather than the generic, hey, I'm playing a show Friday, please come.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's
not very
enticing. No, exactly. And I remember when Twitter first started, and I followed, a ton of musicians on Twitter, and 90% of my feed was, I have a show, please, here are the details. I have a show, here are the details. It's like, okay. It got a little overwhelming, and you start to block it out after a certain amount of time. So I think it's, a friend of mine in New York loves bacon, and so many of her posts were about loving bacon, and her fans would bring her bacon recipes at her shows and things like that. Like, just whatever it is about, whatever's quirky and unique about you as an artist, about you as a band, just bring that out in social media, and people will connect with it, and talk about you and engage with your content. So I think that's the most important thing, is just to, and it can be difficult to kind of figure out, especially when you're a new band, but over time you start to realize, like, oh, like these types of posts seem to really do well and get a lot of engagement. And if we're, we all have a sense of humor, so when we're being funnier and creating memes, that seems to engage with people. Like, it's but the issue is there's no one answer for every band. It's really, every single social media strategy is going to be different, depending on the band, the genre, and what it is that your music is all about. So I think it's important to figure that out, and then the rest will kind of flow from there. All the techniques and scheduling and best times to post and how many times to post, all that stuff is secondary. Like that is the easy stuff to learn. It's really more figuring out who you are and what's unique. Is the more challenging part.
Okay. So shifting back to Bandsoogle, what does Bandsoogle do to help artists? Kind of, why are you guys the company that artists should be going to?
Well, there's a bunch of reasons. I mean, if you agree with us and with me that you need a website, then you have to figure out how to do that. And there's a bunch of ways to create a website. And you can code it yourself, and you can hire a designer. There's other platforms out there. But if you're a musician, I mean, there is no platform out there that goes as deep as Bandsoogle does in terms of functionality and features specifically for musicians. Pardon me, because we're all musicians at the company. Like everyone that works for Bandsoogle is either a musician themselves or is married to a musician. Like it is super musician friendly. And so for 14 years now, pardon me, the company has been building features based on feedback of the members, other musicians. So all the music players, the events tool, like everything goes a lot further for musicians than a generic platform would. And it's just a lot easier. Like if you get someone to design your website for you, then you have to learn how to update it yourself, and you might need to pay to the designer to do those updates for you. Whereas with Bandsoogle, like one of our members, Derek Webb, who's a singer-songwriter and also the founder of Noise Trade, another awesome service for musicians, speaking of building a mailing list. And he texted me last year. He was at the airport waiting for his flight, and he updated his website to release a new single and sent out an email blast, like all from his phone, like just waiting for his flight.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And he texted me to thank me. He's like, dude, it's like and he had just started using Bandsoogle. It's like, I just did all these things, launched this new single on my phone. He's like, it was so easy. He's like, this is awesome. So, ease of use, musician friendly, and all the functionality that goes further. Like, we report to SoundScan. All of your music sales, CD sales in North America get reported to SoundScan if you're on our pro plan. So that's important for some artists. That we do have members that chart on Billboard. Yeah. So all of those sales through their website, are being counted towards SoundScan. We have integrations with SoundCloud, Bandcamp, Pledge Music, Bands in Town, all these tools that musicians are already using. We find ways to integrate them so that it's just easier to also use those tools in conjunction with your website. So just if you compare the different options out there and you're a musician, it's pretty quick to see that there's just a lot more there as a band or an artist with the Bandsoogle platform. And like I mentioned at the very beginning, I mean, this is coming from a guy that used Bandsoogle, long before I ever was getting paid by them, for my record label and for my documentary film about the music industry. I mean, to me, it was the best solution out there, and it is, for a company that is the size of Bandsoogle. I mean, we power over 35,000 websites for bands around the world, which is impressive, but we're a pretty small team, and the feature set that is offered and the constant upgrades to the design tools and the new themes and templates, it's pretty amazing to be part of that and to watch, such a small team accomplish so much and really listen to the needs of their members. And, we're always meeting about what's next, what are the most popular requests from musicians, what would be the most helpful for the most amount of our members, and, put those on the roadmap and, release them. So, every couple of weeks there's new stuff, constantly being added to the platform.
Nice.
That's awesome. My last question is super easy. Where can our listenership find you?
Bandsoogle.com.
There you go.
Yeah, Bandsoogle.com. And, if you're looking for, more advice on the revenue stream side of things or booking shows or anything like that, go to our blog page. We have a ton of free resources on the sidebar of the blog that you can download for free. There's webinars, ebooks, case studies, things like that. So a lot of the stuff that we talked about during the podcast, you can sort of dive deeper into those subjects right there on our blog.
Cool. Awesome. All right, Dave, man, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to do this. We really, really appreciate it. I think our listeners are going to enjoy the hell out of this. This was incredible.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you having me on. It was fun.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again. Hey, guys. First of all, thank you so much for listening. If you could please take a quick moment to subscribe on iTunes and leave a rating and review. Your feedback seriously is really important, and it helps us keep the show alive.
Check out musicianstalkshow.com to sign up for our mailing list. If you do, we're going to send you our main theme song and a few other surprises. Plus, you'll always be the first to know what episodes are coming up.
If you want to help support the show so we can keep putting out the highest quality content possible, please follow the Support the Show link at our website and consider donating to our Patreon page.
Lastly, if you have an idea for a guest or a question you want to discuss, contact us through any of the contact forms on our website, and we'll do everything we can to make it happen.
Whew, all right. That was a lot, but we got through it. Thanks again, guys, and we will see you soon.